Story 1. Should I inform my friend that her husband is being cheating again? I am a 27-year-old lady, and my companion Kelly is 29, we have been companions for around 3 a long time. Our fellowship bloomed after an extreme beginning. We at first experienced each other through my ex-boyfriend, who cheated on me with Kelly's indistinguishable sisters. At that time, I didn't know Kelly was there, but I found out afterward that her spouse and my ex had been communicating, talking approximately their treachery, deceiving both Kelly and me. Once I moved past that alarming encounter, I didn't think about it much until Kelly reached me to reconnect 3 a long time afterward. As we developed closer, I covered up the past, in spite of considering her marriage an inconvenience. I didn't need to meddle, especially in our small oceanside town where rumors travel rapidly. The situation moved when my hairstylist described a story around an end-of-the-week sentiment, and I caught on she was alluding to Kelly's companion. Feeling an obligation to protect my companion, I have chosen to tell her. Lamentably, it had the inverse impact. Kelly felt suspicious of the hairstylist, indeed in spite of the fact that her spouse was unscrupulous around his separate status and appeared to produce separate papers. Instead of standing up to the truth, Kelly restricted my hairstylist, trusting her husband's refusal. I felt awful for getting included, but both Kelly and my beautician appeared to appreciate my offer of assistance, indeed in case the reality was difficult to go up against. The circumstance got to be more complex when I learned that Kelly is the essential breadwinner for her family, supporting her out-of-work spouse as he experiences preparing to end up a paramedic. They had a child who is for a long time ancient and are anticipating another child before long. I realized that without solid proof, Kelly would likely continuously back her spouse. 1 year afterward, I made a modern companion who had no ties to Kelly or my beautician. In a casual chat over coffee, she uncovered that she had a trio with 2 men, one of whom happened to be Kelly's companion. He utilized the same beguiling strategy, appearing her produce separate records to induce her that he was unattached. At this point, I've been hooking with this data for however another year, and it's a noteworthy burden on my considerations. I have a profound encouragement to tell Kelly, especially since she's anticipating, but I'm stressed she might think I'm fairly attempting to make a dramatization. Considering her response already, I'm not certain she will believe me at all. I'm caught in a struggle between my dependability and my want to protect my companion, and I'm questionable about what activities to seek after following. Story 2. I refuse to remove my daughter's lock until my brother-in-law and his daughters move out. Here's why. My brother-in-law, Sammy, has been remaining with us for the final few months since he misplaced his house in the blink of an eye after his separation around 10 months back. It was a troublesome period for him, and my spouse and I accepted it was our obligation to bolster him. He migrated with his twin girls, Olivia and Sloane, who are each 18 a long time old. My companion and I have a girl named Zoe, who is 16 a long time ancient. Even though Zoe and her cousins aren't particularly near, they more often than not get along sensibly well, or at the slightest, that was my impression. In any case, the circumstances changed when it became apparent that Olivia and Sloane had a small respect for Zoe's protection. It started gradually, minor activities such as entering her room without caution or taking her dress without consent. At first, I expelled it as typical young tricks, but it before long escalates. The young ladies would get anything they might discover. Beauty care products, phone contraptions, clothing, and indeed Zoe's school computer. Zoe voiced her complaints to me a few times, sharing her dissatisfaction and torment with respect to her cousin's disregard for her belongings. I attempted to address the issue by talking to Olivia and Sloane straightforwardly, asking them to regard Zoe's protection and to halt taking her things without authorization. I thought I was being sensible, but my spouse and Sammy didn't see it that way. They expelled my concerns, saying it was fair normal behavior for high school young ladies. They appeared to think that since they were all young ladies, it was ordinary for them to borrow each other's things. I opposed this idea and felt that there required to be boundaries input. The circumstance came to a breaking point when Zoe spared up for over a month to purchase a $60 MAC cosmetics unit that looked like a paint set. She was so glad of it and energized to at long last have something pleasant for herself. But one day, Sloane took the pack without inquiring and destroyed it by blending the shades while utilizing it. When Zoe found out what had happened, she was crushed. She found the unit on her bed, totally messed up, and burst into tears. As a parent, it broke my heart to see her so disturbed over something she had worked so difficult to induce. I quickly told my spouse approximately the occurrence, trusting she would understand the gravity of the circumstances. She said she would inquire Sloane to apologize, but I felt that wasn't sufficient. I have chosen to take things into my hands and bought Zoe a bolt for her room entryway. I needed her to feel secure in her claim space, particularly after I found out she had begun moving her important assets out of the house to secure them from her cousins. When Sammy and his girls saw the bolt, they were not upbeat. The young ladies were amazingly disturbed, and Sammy stood up to me almost it. I clarified the circumstance, and he reacted with incredulity, saying, "My girls aren't cheats. It's ordinary for young ladies of the same age to borrow each other's stuff." He went on to say that Zoe might effectively get another cosmetics unit for $15 from Walmart, and addressed why she was indeed buying expensive grown-up cosmetics in the first place. He proposed that my spouse ought to pay attention of what he called a defect in Zoe's personality, inferring that she was attempting to show up more seasoned than she was. I felt disappointed and harmed by his comments. I told him that this was a matter between me and my spouse, but he proceeded to charge me for being overprotective and pampering Zoe. He didn't appear to get it that this was around more than fair a cosmetics unit, it was almost regard and boundaries. I stood my ground, demanding that the bolt would stay until Sammy and his girls moved out of our house. This drives me to a warm contention with my spouse. She was incensed with me for putting a bolt on Zoe's entryway, saying it was out of line for her cousins to see it, which I was preventing them from spending time with Zoe. She requested that I evacuate the bolt, but I denied it, clarifying that it was fundamental for Zoe's peace of intellect. My spouse at that point blamed me for inferring that we ought to kick Sammy and his girls out, which I hadn't implied to recommend. In a minute of dissatisfaction, I reminded her that I had permitted Sammy and his family to move in when her claim family had refused to assist him. I pointed out that in the event that her family had been willing to require him in, we wouldn't be managing with this level of unsettling influence in our domestic. I felt that it was unjustifiable for her to shame me for attempting to ensure our girl when her family had turned their backs on Sammy in his time of require. Since that contention, things have been tense in our family. Everybody has been giving me and Zoe the noiseless treatment, and my spouse is unimaginably disturbed. I can see the strain this circumstance has put on our marriage, and it torments me to think that my want to protect my girl has caused such a crack between us. I need to support Sammy and his girls, but I too have to guarantee that Zoe feels secure and regarded in her possession. It's a sensitive adjustment, and I'm not beyond any doubt how to explore it without harming my connections with my spouse and her family. Story 3. Is my husband ignoring my needs while I'm pregnant? The wife suffers from severe social anxiety and is very pregnant. Her husband attempts to push her into situations she is aware she cannot handle and acts immaturely when she declines to participate, even after being clearly informed of the reasons. Leaves his pregnant wife in tears on the floor to have lunch with his friends. I am 34 years old and currently 5 weeks pregnant. I had an argument with my husband, who is 37, and we've been married for 7 years. We've known each other for 16 years and were together for 6 years prior to marriage. The argument was due to him mentioning last week that we would have brunch with his friend and his friend's girlfriend. I've encountered both of them, but haven't seen either in 5 years. For context, I experience severe social anxiety. My face sweats profusely when I'm nervous and in unfamiliar places with people I'm not well acquainted with, even with close friends, plus I struggle with heat considerably, which worsens the situation, especially since I'm heavily pregnant during the Australian Sydney summer. Anything above around 20 degrees Celsius and I'm already sweating. I also suffer from borderline personality disorder. When my husband mentioned that we would be having brunch with his friends, I felt uncertain, realizing that this is an experience I struggle with currently, considering the heat, my advanced pregnancy, and my lack of familiarity with these people. I mentioned that I wasn't very keen on going, but I would for him. He didn't provide me with any additional information regarding it, just that it would take place on Sunday. He met the male friend on Saturday, the day prior, and likely confirmed the arrangements. He didn't inform me of our destination or the time. At 9 a.m. on Sunday, I inquire, when will we be departing and what is our destination? He has been aware of me long enough to understand that I require knowledge of the plan specifics, allowing me to manage my expectations more effectively and consider how I will handle the situation. He subsequently informs me that it's not really brunch but lunch at 12:30 p.m., and it's at a cafe close to a beach. I indicate that this isn't ideal, as it's midday, the hottest and sunniest time, and I believed we were going out in the morning before it became too warm. He chuckled and replied, "Yeah, not the best situation." He mentioned that he would take me to the venue and then find parking. That seems to imply I need to keep his friends entertained while he's away for an indefinite period, all while I panic, sweat excessively, and embarrass myself. After that conversation, we had breakfast outside, and simply sitting on our balcony, in the shade, at 23 degrees Celsius, at 10 a.m., I was sweating excessively. For example, clearly perspiring. I faced him and remarked, "I don't believe I can handle this, it's too warm currently, not to mention at noon in a seaside cafe." He was annoyed with me, rolled his eyes, and replied, yeah, whatever." It seemed as though he was expecting me to come up with an, in his view, unreasonable reason for not wanting to attend. I became furious, yelled at him to get lost, and left. I texted him to inform him that I'm definitely not going and he can go by himself. I subsequently dedicated my morning to rearranging all the baby items I had requested him to move/help me with 3 days earlier. He then shows up as if everything is fine. I inquired why he overlooked my message. He said he hadn't overlooked it, he simply acknowledged it. I inquired whether he wished to apologize for how he reacted when I expressed that I wasn't sure I could handle being extremely pregnant, overly warm, and too anxious to leave. This escalated into a major argument. I made a strong effort to calmly clarify why I felt so hurt, rather than being a supportive husband and acknowledging my feelings when I shared my discomfort. He responded with anger and rolled his eyes instead of asking how to adjust the plan to help me feel better. His perspective on the issue involved not actually hearing my statements, but rather asserting that I didn't want to go, which I agree is true, but I was honest about it and had provided my justifications. He arranged this for me because he believes I'm a loner with no friends and is extremely worried about me feeling lonely during maternity leave, thinking I won't manage it, and that somehow lunch with 2 people he likes will obviously solve that. I conveyed my desire to be a sociable individual who relishes going out, conversing with others, and forming friendships, yet despite all my efforts, physically, medically, and mentally, I have perpetually struggled with social anxiety. By steering clear of these aspects that I believe are necessary, I find my method of coping. Especially now that I'm close to giving birth, it's crucial for me to feel relaxed, happy, and healthy. I lost my temper and yelled and cursed. Because I never sense that he truly hears or comprehends my words or feelings. He asserts that he understands, but then promptly contradicts himself by saying I'm the issue and that he's the victim, claiming he was only doing me a favor, as though I should appreciate being put in scenarios I can't handle. He lost control, he banged doors. He would return, and this debate would continue to loop endlessly. I was simply crying and crying while he continued to argue his point and did not hear me. Ultimately, the argument concluded with him acknowledging why I didn't wish to attend, and he expressed regret for being inattentive in not accommodating the situation to my needs. Yet still contributed nothing to alter the situation and was eager to depart to avoid being late. he causes us to be late for everything since he dislikes waiting, which is another source of my anxiety, even though I was in complete distress, crying. He departed. I remained on the ground weeping. Now he has returned home and is acting as though nothing occurred. And felt irritated that I had done all the heavy lifting and shifting of items without his assistance. Even though I informed him repeatedly over several days about my plans and my desire for his assistance. Update. I must mention that apart from this issue, my mental health and well-being appear to be overlooked/dismissed/invalidated. He is truly a good person. He handles the household chores more than I do since he likes a tidy home, while I work as a vet nurse and often feel too tired to manage housework. I have no doubt he will be a great dad to our child. However, I'm worried that there's a continual struggle to make him comprehend my mental health needs. Next update. Years ago, my psychiatrist suggested that we attend couples therapy. I requested my husband to go, but he strongly opposed it, which deeply troubled me, and I conveyed my feelings to him. And then, similar to all matters regarding mental health or confrontation, we simply act as if it didn't occur. Yet, it is likely the best option for us. However, it's challenging to force someone to do something against their will. Particularly when it would necessitate him to introspect and enact changes on his own. Thank you all for watching and listening to my story. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday, filled with family, food, and peace. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you once again.